almost got it figured out. I think I have. Welcome to another week of Soccer Down Here AM. John here, you there. Time to break it all down. And obviously Monday, and I'll lay out the week for you here. This morning, it's going to be Abe Gordon coming in about 10 minutes. And Abe will break it down in his thoughts. He and Maddie had pre and post on 92.9 The Game on the Odyssey app. And we'll look at Atlanta United in the 2-2 draw with FC Cincinnati. Like I said, we've got all the goals. We've got all the things. And so we'll go through all of that here this morning. That's hour number one. Hour number two is going to be Bart Keeler. And that is going to be, I'm fairly certain, it's going to be an adventure in and of itself because of everything that is there involving what happened with the men's national team yesterday. Yeah, that's going to be a long discussion. And so I don't know how much reffing down here we're going to get into with Bart, but when Bart joins us for hour number two, it's going to be a lot of examination, and we'll go through the match, we'll go through the numbers, go through the highlights. We've got post, plus we have analysis from both sides. We have post-match comments with Christian Pulisic in his conversation with Nico Cantor. We also have Matthew Cyanidi from TSN and our friend Christian Jack at One Soccer. They had a long discussion about it. We pulled a section of that to get the Canadian element of the whole thing. We've got to get into Jesse Marsh and the red card and all of the things in hour number two. So I'm imagining that today is going to be a whole lot of U.S. men's national team and Atlanta United. Obviously, there's going to be other things, AM news, that might come across the desk and so on and so forth. But I would imagine most of today is going to be, understandably so, going with Atlanta United, FC Cincinnati, and the men's national team. So that's pretty much today. Here's the layout for the week for you. Like I said, today, Abe Gordon coming up in about 10 minutes, a little less than 10. Traditionally, Abe will be on the Tom Coughlin scale, so he'll probably be in more like 5. Bart's going to be in at 10 o'clock. Tomorrow, since it is the last Tuesday of the month, our buddy Keeler Hodges from the USL show will be with us at 10:30. Keeler will break down 25,575 in Oakland for Roots and everything else that has happened in the first couple of weeks of the regular season in USL. We get into Pro Rel. We'll get into the discussion with Keeler at 10:30 tomorrow. I think if the time change is correct, off the top tomorrow, we get to catch up with our friends from the Marshall Islands. Lloyd Hours will check his schedule. The man, he and Matt Webb, I think, are flying around all over the place. But it looks like we're going to catch up with the technical director and director of communications for the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation, Lloyd Hours and Matt Webb. That should be in hour number one tomorrow. Like I said, if math is correct, then we'll find out the updates there, find out about the tournament in Springdale, Arkansas, how that came to be, all the organization that's there, the Kickstarter project. We'll get into all of that. Then Wednesday, traditionally normal, it is Tyler at 9:15 from Scarves and Spikes for the Atlanta United Informational Exchange journalistic program. And then our buddy Dylan Butler coming back in at 10 o'clock, as he always does, to start our look at Major League Soccer as we head into the latter portions of the week. Thursday, once again, Nino and Nico in the Power Hour, 10 to 10:30. And we're looking for guests Major League Soccer-wise, and we're also tracking down another couple of folks. And we'll see what we can do when it comes to NYCFC. We've got some folks in mind there. Friday, once again, it'll be the weekend whip around, patent pending, trademark coming sooner, hopefully, rather than later. And if they're not globetrotting, our friends from Beyond Goals Mentoring, that would be in hour number one. Weekend whip around in hour number two. Also, it is a full week when it comes to the high school soccer broadcasting plans that we have today. I will be out at Social Circle for Putnam County and Social Circle, that doubleheader, 5:30 and 7:30 on the network. Tuesday, it is New Manchester and Kennesaw Mountain Senior Day for the Mustangs. So we'll be there for that. Once again, 5:30, 7:30. That'll be on the network. Wednesday in session will be on at noon. That'll be the only day this week where we're at home. Thursday, it is a road trip to Perry for Warner Robins and Perry. Then Friday, it is Parkview and Brookwood, and we are also efforting another matchup on SDH 2 that could settle region titles and things like that. So That's the high school side in session, joining us at noon across the network on Wednesday. Kai Uchimura from Druid Hills will be there. Molly McCarty from Jefferson will be there, and we're efforting a third coach on the boys' side. We'll see who can join us there. So that is the rundown for the week that I know you got on this particular side of things. You're going to have training ground dispatches as Atlanta gets ready for NYC. Jason and Maddie will have for you all week. So it's going to be wall-to-wall coverage like it always is. High school, Major League Soccer. The twos are this weekend as well on Sunday after the match with NYCFC. So NYCFC comes to Mercedes-Benz on Saturday. Sunday, Chattanooga FC comes down to take on the twos, and that's your action at the Fraction on Sunday night. I didn't even get to cut a promo. I just told you what the week was like. That's where we are. That's how busy things are going to be. And so, of course, now that means that we check in with our buddy Abe Gordon and see if he is, in fact, properly hydrated for a Monday. And are you properly hydrated for a Monday, sir?
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. The week always starts slow, but we'll get there.
Now that you have had a day or so, day plus, to think about the draw for Atlanta United and FC Cincinnati and the chaos that was involved in all of it, where Own Goal reared his ugly head again, and he's chasing after the league lead in goals scored, our buddy OG. Now that you had some time to think about it, what are some of your thoughts after the post-game show and Atlanta United's draw in Cincy?
Yeah, I mean, a couple things jump out. And let's go ahead and address our good buddy Own Goal. This is not a guy turning around and shooting it at his own keeper, right? I mean, you are taking steps and maneuvers to putting the opposing team in a bad situation. And while Saba doesn't officially get credited with the goal, I mean, certainly you have to look at the job he did on that play and say, hey, this is something that he created. It may not go in the scorebook as his. But we all know better. So we do keep that in mind with Own Goal. Some of these are just legitimately bad goals that a mistake is made or they pass back to a keeper who was in the wrong position off his line. We've all seen that stuff before. It almost feels like it's cheating, though, when you take away some sort of credit from our guys for doing something that is mildly deserving of a goal. I mean, Saba gets a move. He finds a ball that he wants to cut back, and it doesn't reach our guy, but it reaches theirs, and that's that. So with that said, look, you came from a trailing position on the road to rescue a point. I think at times in the season that's going to be how it has to go. It's frustrating that at one point in this match you were leading 1-0. This is the second road match now where you've given up 2 goals in a span of 5 minutes, right? You did that against Charlotte, right? Pep Biel and then Zaha in the span of 4 minutes. And then the other night, Evander twice within 5 minutes. So is that something we need to address potentially? But you consider the international break. You consider some of the injuries, including one that happened in game to Tristan Moyamba. You consider 10 guys being out. You consider early yellow cards that key players are having to play an entire half plus on, et cetera, et cetera. You're not going to be too disappointed. I do think this is a team that needs to find ways to win on the road. You had 4 road wins all of last year. Of all the Eastern Conference playoff teams, only Montreal had fewer. And that's something that needs to change if you want to get out of the 8, 9, 7 range, if you want to get into 4, 5, 6. And so I did think going in, this was an opportunity to pick up 3 points. I thought after Latte Loth's goal, which was an incredibly difficult touch to put that on net. I thought you were in good position 50 minutes in to possibly get that road win, but it was not to be. But again, as the season rolls on, there are going to be plenty of times where we say we'll take 1 point on the road, and so I won't make that exception just yet here either.
No doubt, especially with the 10 absences that were there for this lineup. But once again, we have these discussions when you have international windows injuries and such. And that was why Chris Henderson, Ronnie Dyla, Garth Lagerwey had the roster assembled to the point that they do, because then you get to talk about folks like Matthew Edwards. You get to talk about folks like Will Riley, who is going to be the underlined, exclamated, italicized, bold-faced print, I think, coming out of this match, is that Will gets a yellow early, and He stuck with it. I mean, literally, it is one of the more professional jobs that you can have in your first MLS start. You get the early yellow card, and then you keep going. It's not a situation where Ronnie Dyla pulls him after 45, and I know that was a bit of a concern in some circles, but Will Riley, early yellow, stuck with it, played the full 90, and had a hell of a match as a part of the roster that was assembled there on Saturday.
Yeah, look, you had a couple guys really showcase themselves, and we'd seen Matt Edwards a little bit before, but it had been on the outside, and we saw some defensive capabilities on the road in Charlotte against Zaha in that first half. Thought he was outstanding there, and it fell apart not just for him, for the whole team in the second half. But he looked very solid, pairing with Derek Williams there at the center back. And I'll get to Will Riley in just a moment because I'll spend more time on him. But I thought Keimon Togashi had an outstanding run of play in the second half as well. And he also showcased some dangerous. He showcased, obviously, a heads-up ability that led to an assist on the first goal, and also showed you some maneuverability. He was asked to play a couple of different positions based on substitution patterns and who came in, who came out. So credit to him for a high-strung performance as well. And that brings us to Will Riley. A couple of things. I was wondering if he was going to be subbed out at halftime for a lot of the reasons you brought up. Obviously, a guy making his first start and dealing with a yellow card, and certainly you don't want to go down a man at any point is the risk there. But I was also concerned about the adrenaline dump, right? A guy coming into the MLS and he's all amped up, and that's partially why you saw him get a yellow card there in the first half. And once you calm down, like once you kind of stabilize during halftime, are you a step slower? Are you playing scared? Do you think more than react? Stuff like that. Does that pop in? And it wasn't an issue for him. And he goes the full 90 minutes there. And considering, and we'll find out the full extent of the injury at some point, I don't know how many times we'll see him back down. He has put up an argument in one match, I think, to be paired with Bartosz Slisz. And obviously you have Click and you have Jay Fortune, who will return as well from international duty, and they belong in the discussion as well. But just because this guy is young, just because he only has one now career start, does not mean he is second choice to those guys. I think it's a real consideration from Ronnie Dyla after the performance to pair him with Slisz and continue to let him grow. And we'll see what that means for the other guys. The other question here, John, and it was a question for me before the season, and the performance, I think, on Saturday afternoon maybe reinvigorates the discussion, is Saba on the right or Saba on the left? I just thought he looked completely different as a player on the right side in Saturday. And maybe it's because there wasn't any Miggy in terms of pressure, in terms of stress, in terms of taking the game over. Whatever the difference was, we need to see that sort of Saba. And if that means that we try Miggy on the left and keep Saba on the right, I think it should be explored. I don't know if you maybe do that just because of this one performance, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least some very light discussions about what we saw from Saba in this match, how we can bring it back when Miggy is here, and does that mean we have to keep him on the right side potentially?
Will Riley's numbers, I'll go over both Saba's and Will Riley's numbers part of this. Will Riley's numbers on the day, he hit practically every column, especially every defensive column on the board. 82 touches, 45 of 55 passing, so that's 82 touches, 82%. 2 key passes. It was 1 of 3 on the dribble. 9 of 16 on his ground duels. 9 of 16, which is an insane number when you think about it. Then you have a 1 for 1 in the air. So 10 of 17 for Will Riley in the day. Fouled 5 times, 2 clearances, 3 blocks, 4 picks, 3 tackles, and 2 dribbles passed. I mean, literally, the last 6 categories that SofaScore sits there and registers defensively, Will Riley had more than a straight up and down. He had multiple triggers in times he was fouled when he had possession of the ball, which meant that Cincinnati was keying on him to try to gain possession. We're going to pair off on the rook and see what happens, and he didn't flinch. Clearances, blocks, picks, tackles, and dribbles passed, and times he was fouled by FC Cincinnati. All of those were more than just one time in the match. Now, Saba, on the flip side, to your offense, your 1 assist on the day, 42 touches, 20 of 25 passing at 80%. 3 key passes. He had 1 successful cross. We know what happened with that. 2 big chances created, 2 shots on target, 1 off, 1 shot blocked, 1 big chance missed, 3 for 6 on his ground duels, was fouled once, had 1 offside, 1 pick, 2 tackles, and 2 dribbles passed. So, in addition to what we see offensively, those defensive metrics that we kind of keep an eye on too, you're getting a lot of attention to those as well. And like I said, it's not just a one-time thing, it's multiple times within the span of a match for both of those guys.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, and I don't know if this is like lowest common denominator way to break it down in regards to Will Riley, but if you had told someone that there's a guy making his first MLS start on the pitch and not told them who it is and asked them to pick out the player, I just don't know that they're settling on Will Riley.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what you're asking for when you ask these guys to step into these roles for the first time. Just look like they belong, be themselves, play their game, and get the job done. And I think that's obviously, and I talked about this with Madison Cruz on the Full-Time Report. I mean, the ability of this organization, this whole franchise, from the academy and the twos to step guys up into these situations, and that goes for Matt Edwards as well. It may be among the best in all of MLS, and so I thought he was just outstanding. And you never would have guessed it was his first MLS start. And you know, I don't want to shoot down on players, but I mentioned this as well. And you looked at Ashton Gordon last year, and I think there were times in matches when he was playing with the first team where you're like, man, I don't know if that's the right confidence level, if that's the right this, if that's the right that. It looked maybe like he realized he was playing against guys on a different level than he was used to. And you did not see that from Will Riley. It just looked like he was out there in a Sunday beer league doing what he does. Nothing changed for him. And I think that's the most impressive aspect of that performance. And so they're going to keep hammering away, but he's certainly made it a discussion. And in terms of Saba, you can read out all the numbers. All I know is I don't know how impactful he had been previously this season into the actual goals, but he either wholly or partially created both of them this week, and so it feels like he's gotten back into it. And then you just got to bottle up why. Is it because he was on the right? Is it because of how Cincinnati liked to play their defense, and they had a modified back line themselves as well? So you just got to figure out and look at those things as to why. And then the one thing we haven't really seen a ton of, at least not in this game, was Pedro and Brooks getting pushed up the wings. We did see it obviously the week before in the loss, but we didn't get a lot of that this week. Maybe they felt they needed to stay back a little bit safer on defense with I don't want to call them question marks, but new pieces in the midfield with Riley and center defense there with Matt Edwards. Maybe they wanted to hug back a little bit, but I still think there's more to get from them. And so, again, it's a point on the road. I think at this point in the season, you'll take it, but it certainly feels like there's still much higher heights for this Atlanta United squad coming.
Abe Gordon, 92.9 The Game, as he always does. He is our Ricky Henderson every single Monday when he is locked in and when he is making sure that certain individuals I heard an agreement with one of your opinions. I can't remember which opinion that it was there at the Casa de Abe, that Chipper actually agreed with you on a particular opinion a little while ago. So, I mean, that's how we are here, making sure that that everything is in line on a Monday. I mean, hey, look, trust me, I know, look. Full disclosure, Rowdy Man is just under the table here. He's out. I don't know where Chipper is, but
she's staring daggers at me from the couch right over here, waiting to go out again. So.
Yeah, just Chipper, 2-minute warning. Okay. Now you have to build. Everybody's coming back. You don't know what the travel plans are, getting ready for NYC. It's another big match at home this weekend. But once again, you had the coaching job that Ronnie Dyla and the group did, getting ready without having the pieces available for you. Now, obviously, health and travel permitting, everybody's going to be back going up against NYC, and NYC is your box of chocolates. It's just literally, I don't know where the scoring comes from at times. They don't know where the scoring's coming at times, but everybody back, and the challenge that was there without everyone for Atlanta United is now going to be the challenge renewed with everyone back for a home match against NYC.
Well, look, we've talked about it really these first couple of weeks. It's a difficult schedule. It's this, it's that. You're performing well. The results won't come. I know that's something that Ronnie Dyla keeps harping on. But statistically, this is the worst start in a 5-game stretch in Atlanta United franchise history. Now, it doesn't necessarily feel that way, at least not to me, because it feels like this team is competitive. It feels like this team is close. But there are stretches that cost them points over the course of the game, and not necessarily long stretches, short stretches that cost you points. And so you've certainly gotten to tighten that one up. But another opportunity, you are back home. But again, another team that went to the MLS playoffs last season. We talked about it. Your first 6 games against playoff teams from a year ago, it has not gone that well. And I mentioned it multiple times with you, John. We're going to have patience, and we're going to let this thing play out. And I think we've taken some steps, but at some point, however you perform, the results do have to come eventually. And so hopefully back at home, you can get your players back, and you can figure a couple of things out. Again, I thought maybe you learned some things about yourselves in this draw on the road. Can you take them, recreate them, add the new pieces or the returning pieces or the improved, whatever you want it to be, back in and manage different results? But I still feel pretty good about where this team is heading. I agree, actually, with Ronnie Dyla. I think you've had some pretty good performances. I think you've cost yourselves because of moments or stretches of downplay. And maybe that's something that we just excuse as we were pretty good for all this time, except for that. Obviously, at some point, you have to cut out that downplay, the excuses, and those moments that cost you points. And just play a complete match. But they do feel close. We did see a little bit more danger in the attack, and hopefully they can bring that again to Saturday night, where we'll have the broadcast for you on 92.9 The Game, the pregame show, postgame show. We'll have you fully covered from Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
All right, go walk Chipper, because we don't need daggers here on the morning show. As always, my friend, great to see you batting lead off on Mondays. Be safe.
Yeah, man. Have a good week. We'll see you next time.
You got it. There's Abe. And so Abe is going to go continue hydrating, and he's going to make sure that Chipper goes out, because the last thing you need is an angry Chipper. So there you go. It's always great to see Abe to start things off. And we'll break things down once again with Atlanta United here and here today and tomorrow, drifting in and out with the guests. Once again, as we always do traditionally, Major League Soccer, we'll take a look at that on your Tuesday as well, in addition to the friends that are going to be dropping by. So good morning, David. Morning, Katie Weaver. And morning, Alex. And so, as always, it's great to see everybody drifting in and getting ready for yet another big week when it comes to Atlanta United here on the network. So let's go over the goals and how we got to the 1 point that ended up on the board. And we'll go through, once again, all the stats and everything on the flip side of all of this. But once again, starting things off, the man says, early on, it was no real surprise what we've seen from Emmanuel Latte-Lot. So Latte-Lot, first goal on the board, Atlanta United gets the lead, courtesy, once again, of our friends at 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app.
He'll trap against an off-balance angle and thread it through now to Togashi down the near touchline. He's on his horse. It's a race to the ball, and it's out for a throw off Powell. Thrown in quickly to Saba at the right end line. Cut that cross. Shot! Score! The L train again! The quick throw. The pretty cutback cross by Saba. The L train slams it home. 1-0.
And I don't think that we give enough recognition to the heads-up play of Togashi in that instance, where heads-up play, you're claiming it. Cincinnati's sitting there with a couple of hands going, "Oh, it's ours." But Togashi grabs the ball, quick throw, once again on the restart, getting past that back line that we've been talking about with Cincinnati and their makeshift issues that they had with injuries and such. And then the cutback cross Latte-Lot with the left foot from 12 or so. I think it was just under 12, and it goes to be 1-0. Then that's where things were for a while. Then, as Abe mentions, it's 2 goals in a 5-minute span. And one of them, literally, you just sit there and it's like, yep, deflection, and then it was what it was. So Evander ties things up off a set piece. And once again, folks on the wall, goes off the wall. But here's how it was. Once again, Mike and Jason on the call, 92.9 The Game on the Odyssey app.
Action at the goal to our left. They get the whistle. It's Evander. He goes for goal. Score. Off a deflection. It looked like it skimmed the top of the wall.
It deflected off the wall and in, and there's nothing Brad Kazan can do.
No doubt about that. And the way that the ball's path was initially going, Brad had it tracked going to his right, but goes off the wall, takes a deflection, continues to keep a straight line toward the far post as Brad is trying to lean to the near. You get that moment, and then it's 1-1. And then in transition, you end up with another goal. Evander makes it 2-1. Evander, by the way, punched a 9.8 on SofaScore with his numbers and his goals on the board. So once again, here's the goal that gave Cincinnati the lead, 2 goals in 5 minutes, 92.9 The Game on the Odyssey app.
Off the throw, loose in the central channel. Bucat coming forward out of one tackle to the penalty spot for Evander, and he scores. 2-1.
And it was just like that. It was 2-1 Cincinnati. And with the entry by Buca and Evander, you had a couple of defenders there for Atlanta. That was they were in between the pass from Buca and Evander. Evander had some space, shot it in with the left, got it past Brad to make it 2-1. Just to let you know, Evander with 2 goals on the day. Once again, a 9.8 on SofaScore. So Evander's numbers, he had an XG with those 2 goals of a .32. I know that Abe likes to believe in AG, actual goals, and AA actual assists. But 2 goals on the day, so it's a 2 on the AG scale for Abe. A .32 with the 2 goals, according to our friends at SofaScore. 4 shots on target, none of them off. 2 shots were blocked. The other 2 ended up obviously going into the net. Then it was 1 for 5 on the dribble, 82 touches, 82% passing at 42 of 51. 2 key passes, 1 cross, 2 long balls out of 4. 1 big chance created, understandably ends up in the back of the net. 9 of 17 in ground duels, 0 for 2 in the air, so 9 of 19 on the day total. Lost possession 20 times on the day for Evander. Committed 3 fouls. He was fouled 4 times as a part of Atlanta and their defensive efforts. 1 offside, 4 tackles, 1 dribble pass. And once again, the 2 goals, and Evander ended up with a 9.8. So it's 2-1 Cincinnati, and Atlanta is chasing at this point and trying to come up with an equalizer. They do, and we did talk about our old buddy OG getting on the board, but once again, it was the pressure from Atlanta United up the right-hand side with Saba that created this moment that gave 2-2 and the eventual end result. Once again, 92.9 The Game in the Odyssey app.
And we'll roll it through the circle. In front now, here's Moranchuk to Saba, the right wing. Watelon making the run. Saba going to him. Put it for an own goal by Aldous Powell. We're tied in the
89th minute. You end up with that as your end result. Your SofaScore numbers on the day. We mentioned Saba's. Saba finishing at a 7.6. Latelata 7.2. Miranchuk a 6.4. Shande a 6.6. Tristan Muyumba in his 40 minutes really has embraced what Ronnie Dyla wants him to do offensively and defensively. Tristan is 7.5. Obviously, no information yet on the injury. Ronnie Dyla did mention post-match that he thought it might be a meniscus. Obviously, it was early returns, really didn't have any concrete information. Didn't think it was a ligament, went in other directions when he was asked about it. Backline of Amador, Williams, Matt Edwards, and Brooks Lennon, all in the mid-6s. Pedro is 6'3", Derek is 6'6", Matt Edwards is 6'4", Brooks Lennon is 6.5, and Brad Gazan finished with a 6.8 on the day. Brad's numbers coming from 4 saves on the afternoon. And 2 saves from inside the 18, 52 touches, 56% passing, 25 of 45, 8 for 26 on long balls, 2 clearances, and that was Brad's day for you at 6.8. Your subs, obviously, Togashi coming in and making the most of his opportunity, coming in the 41st minute for Tristan Muyumba. Ronald Hernandez came in, obviously not fully fit, but came in and gave you 20 and subbing for Oshande Silva. And then Mateus Click came in, gave you 10, subbing for Matt Edwards. Other folks that were there that did not see action, Jaden Hibbert and Josh Cohen, your backup keepers, Nick Sessock, Cooper Sanchez, Ashton Gordon, and Rodrigo Neri. And this was the list, once again, the list of the players that were out for Atlanta United on the day. Abram, Almiron, Fortune, Cobb, Gregerson, Morales, Bart Sleesh, Ronald was until he was subbed. Then it was Edwin Mosqueda and Jamal who were also on the board. Click was there as well, doubtful coming in, but ended up giving you 10 minutes by the time you were done. So those are your stats and your numbers of the individual players for Atlanta United going up against Cincinnati. And it was nerve-wracking. Not going to lie. It was nerve-wracking, and it was one of those matches where Atlanta United was in control for the most part. And you look at the waves of control, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. And then it was trying to figure out, where is it? It mentions, okay, so in the first, say, I don't know how they break this up, but you had Atlanta United pretty much in control once again out of the blocks. Then you get the return of control to FC Cincinnati. Then Atlanta United had, up to a point, you're looking at, I'm trying to see if I can figure out where. I know it's attack momentum, silly. And attack momentum was Atlanta United's for the most part. Attack momentum, the statistic that's given by SofaScore, attack momentum was mainly Atlanta United's up until that stretch where the 2 goals were scored in the 5 minutes. You had a handful of minutes ahead of time. So basically, say 65 to 75 in the minutes on the clock, that was controlled by FC Cincinnati. But most of that time, from 0 to 65, Atlanta United had the attack momentum, according to our friends at SofaScore. Then you had from 65 to 75, and then it was mostly Cincinnati's until the last handful of minutes when Atlanta United would eventually score the final 10 and trying to chase after it. So if you believe in attack momentum, according to our friends at SofaScore, most of it was Atlanta United's. And you had that one big stretch and once again, second half, and I know that head coach Ronnie Dial is going to be looking at the second 45, but the first 45, mainly Atlanta United. That got them to the break. And then it was mostly Cincinnati's up until the second goal was scored, and through that and then to the final 10 minutes when Atlanta would score the final goal of the match. So that's something, obviously, that Ronnie Dial and the staff are going to be looking at once again, is that second half, and then the other club having the momentum, carrying it through and taking advantage of having that attack momentum. So that was where things were for Atlanta United. Once again, Cincinnati came in the juice boxes at a minus 133. Your draw was a plus 300. Atlanta United ended up, and the number dropped to a plus 320. And so that was where it finished for Atlanta United and FC Cincinnati. So I know that a lot of you have some thoughts coming into this morning. I know that Katie's in, and Katie says, love the finishing, but how far away is Latte Lot from a yellow card suspension? At least Gigi was getting his money's worth with needless yellows. Latte Lot seemed cheap or chippy. Let's check the stats for Emmanuel Latte Lot. And, I don't know if he's developing the reputation yet. Let's see where we are. I don't think he's close to 5. Because if he was close to 5 yellows out of the blocks, then that would be like a yellow practically every match. But let's check and see where Latte Lot's numbers are, so we can have a quick peek and see where Latte Lot's is at the moment. So I don't want player. Okay, so here we go. Emmanuel Latte Lot, he has 3 yellows, so he's 2 away when it comes to right now his yellow card suspension. So 5 matches, 409 minutes played, 4 goals. So he right now is tied for third in Major League Soccer with Pasalic out of the purple team and Kelvin Muboa from Minnesota. Passing percentage, 76.9%, 12 shots, 9 of them on target, and he has 4 key passes, an XG of under 3. So he has, of those who have scored 4 goals this season in Major League Soccer, he is second. Kelvin Muboa's XG is a 4.71. Pasalic at a 2.57. Latelat at a 2.98. 5 fouls, and he has suffered 2, been called offside 4 times, and has 3 yellow cards. So 5 fouls and 3 yellow cards. I don't know what that qualifies itself down to, Katie. But, if it's a professional foul, then I understand it. If it's something that we've been discussing and then we continue to bring about when it comes to iniquity and delivering of fouls and cards and whistles and such, that's another thing to get into about this. So just when you're looking at the numbers, then just look at the context of the foul at the time. I know that you're saying that the foul seemed cheap or chippy. If it is a cheap or a chippy foul, is it a receipt? Is it something that is just randomly pulled by the man with the whistle in the middle? Like I said, I'm going to have to go back and look and see where the fouls were so we can gauge what they were at the time. I'll go back and look. So let me write this down. I'm going to write down what I need to keep an eye on. So Emmanuel Latelat, fouls, and context. All right, so I've got that written down. So all right, so it's on the board. Something to look at what's going on. Let's see. So let's see. Morning, Katie. Morning, David. Morning, Rich. Let's see. Alex, OG is tied for second for Atlanta goals, 5 matches in. Rich has a question. Is Atlanta all offense, no defense? I don't know if it's all offense, no defense. I think initially you didn't have, and like I said, this is smallest of sample sizes. You're looking 5 matches in. And there are teams that have been successful in Major League Soccer in recent years with that philosophy. I don't think that's how Atlanta is wired. But there are, and we know this in different sports, where defense comes first and then offense will come. Sometimes it's the other way around. With Atlanta, you didn't have Amador from the beginning. You didn't have Brooks from the beginning. So you're trying to piece things together with folks like Matthew Edwards. And this go round, it's international duty. So literally you're having injuries and international duty contribute to the defensive workings that you have right now. But this time out in the matchup against Cincinnati specifically, Rich, it was a deflection off a set piece, and then the second Evander goal, fine, that I get, but you have a goal deflected off of a set piece, and we can go back and look at all the other goals as they were administered. But the back line that you were looking for with Amador and Derek and Steon and Brooks, you didn't have it until last week. So you didn't have it until match number 4, and you're still trying to get it all squared away. Defensively, I know that you were looking for Mateus Klick to be an integral piece, especially when it comes to being one of those 2 6s that's in front of that back 4. And Klick has been injured, but what you've seen is Tristan Muyumba step up. Klick has been injured, so your initial thought about having your starter, once again, you're having to figure out, okay, if I don't have my starter, what am I doing? And that's where Jay Fortune and Tristan Muyumba step in. And then the attack being the attack, and you can come back defensively. So in the matches for Atlanta United, so in the matches for, all right, so let's take a peek at the goals and see, once again, where things have been stylistically. So full schedule. Here we go. Morning, Michael Valverde. Okay, so 2 given up to Miami. And in that one, it was Messi and Fafa Pico. Fafa Pico, that was, once again, I know that if you ask Ronnie Dyla, that's something that shouldn't happen, and the players will tell you it shouldn't happen either. Lionel Messi in the 20th minute, that was the chip over Brad and a turnover at the back. So that was with that one. Red Bulls was a goalless draw. Charlotte and Atlanta. Charlotte was once again, Charlotte, if you look at the goals with Biel and Zaha, it was 2 and 5 minutes. And it was over pursuit, if I'm remembering correctly, and dealing with the ball jumping over you in the defensive left and creating opportunities there. So I would say that they're not all offense, no defense, but the goals that you have given up are, individual things that need to be looked at from the perspective of, okay, this wasn't the back four, it was over pursuit. You have someone who is, in their first match, those kinds of things. But one of those matches, once again, was the goalless draw with Red Bulls, and that was one of your best defensive efforts that you've had this season. So you have to. It's not necessarily looking at it as all one and not the other. It's just the context that's addressed, and you didn't have your back four the way that you were looking at it until last time out. But the one before Cincinnati, not Cincinnati. So trying to piece things together, international windows, all those kinds of things. So that's kind of what we're looking at, Rich, when it comes to defense right now. Atlanta, I think that you look at that offense, and that's why you dropped $22 million on Latte Lot, was so you could have what you're looking at so far with him, who is, once again tied for third in Major League Soccer in goals scored. That's what you're hunting for there. You're looking for that kind of movement. I think that there are times when you look at the offense so far. I think that you look at Miguel, and there's the pressure of expectation that's attached to what you're seeing from Miguel Almiron. And I think that it's an adjustment for him. It's an adjustment for Saba because with Saba, he doesn't have to be the guy like he was last year. He can be a guy, and you got to see that over the weekend against Cincinnati. Was it exclusively just because he was on the right-hand side and didn't work to his left, and you had Shande and Togashi working on the left-hand side? Don't know. But it's something that you can take as a part of your empirical evidence going forward in discussing the offense whatsoever. And when you also have and Michael, once again, it was self-inflicted, mentioning the Fafa Pico goal, and then once again the turnover early on, which created the Messi goal and the chip and all that kind of stuff. What's Alex? What is the birthday boy discussing on the blue sky? On the whoa. Okay. Well, there you go. That's our first one of these today. Laurent Courtois is gone. CF Montreal, according to Tommy Scoops on the Butterfly, says they fired Laurent Courtois. The beginning of his second year with the team led the team to the wild card game last year. We all know what happened there. But Laurent Courtois is out. OWT out. Man. Crazy. And so we'll talk about that as we go here this morning too. Rich and Alex is like, if so, big problem considering scored 5 goals in 5 matches, not counting OG. Katie says, Latte Lot, I think at least one has been dissent, though it might have been an MLS learning curve thing. And I would agree with that. If one of them was dissent, then, and it's also dealing with officials and all those kinds of things. Morning, Valverde. Katie's a big Steon Stanner. Yeah, the defense is there. And Rich right now, happy that the Bradley Carnell version of Philadelphia, Bradley Carnell, is doing well as opposed to the St. Louis all caps version, and the Bradley Carnell derby that happened this past weekend. And Michael mentioning once again, the 2 goals, and that Riley played well. Job well done. Absolutely. And that's bringing him back from Stanford. Once again, coming through the academy, played with the 2s, had a choice, went to Stanford, came back, and you're seeing Will Riley contribute there. And morning, Abby. So quickly, with the information that we had with our breaking news this morning, let me check and see if there is anything attached to it currently. And obviously, shocking no one, the Canadian men's national team is on the cover. So Canadian Press, club announced the move Monday, 2 days after the 3-0 loss to Nashville. Assistant coach Marco Donadel will take over on an interim basis. Hired January 9th to 24. 2 seasons as the head coach of Columbus Crew 2. Helped Montreal get to the wild card round, losing at home to Atlanta. They now play Chicago at Chicago on Saturday as the season 7-game road trip nears the end. Home opener April 12th against Charlotte. And this is the other part of it that bugs me, among other parts that bug me. So we know that Joey Saputo is never one to be patient. Not a surprise that he is not being patient here. And so, once again, I am not surprised. I'm not surprised one bit that this is happening there in Montreal because of Joey Saputo. And the front pages have not been updated with Club de Foot Montreal news. So we're ahead of, I think, Tom Bogert and TSN are ahead of the Montreal Gazette. So there you go. Montreal. So Montreal newspapers. Let's see, is there anything other than the Gazette? Gazette, the Suburban. No. All right, so it is the Gazette. Let me see if Sportsnet has said anything out of the ordinary when it comes to what we know. But the notion that anyone is hot under the collar, it's Joey Saputo. Once again, no patience. And the fact that you do it is in the middle of a road trip. Okay, so nothing new from that copy. So if they part ways with Laurent Courtois, here's what the club says. Literally, it's 3 sentences. Here is, as of 40 minutes ago, here's what CF Montreal says. CF Montreal announced on Monday it's parted ways with first-team head coach Laurent Courtois. Our assistant coach Marco Donadel becomes the interim head coach. No other changes have been made to the coaching staff. CF Montreal would like to thank Laurent for his contributions to the club. 4 sentences. 4 sentences. Donadel takes charge, and you have our first sacking of the year in Major League Soccer coming from Montreal. But if you're going to, the impatience, we know it exists in the ownership group because Joey Saputo, he's in his box when he's there, and he'll come down and he'll visit the locker room and he'll yell and rant and rave and all that kind of stuff. I get it. The fact that you're playing your first 7 away from home because of weather being the weather, and you have 2 more matches to play before you come home. You have a team that is on the road and is gassed. They haven't scored. They've only scored 2 goals this year in their first 5 matches. They've given up 9. They don't have the worst defense in the Eastern Conference. They don't have the worst offense in the Eastern Conference. In the East, though, they are dead last. Goal difference of -7. So they're not scoring, but their defense isn't the worst. First 7 are on the road. And you want to fire Laurent Courtois now. A team that is wiped out, just gassed completely. You get thumped by Nashville, and that one was over early. And you decide to fire your coach. Once again, logic and Joey Saputo and CF Montreal, they don't mix. The worst offense in the Eastern Conference is New England. They've only scored once. They also have a match in hand because of CONCACAF. They do not have the worst defense in the Eastern Conference. Toronto's given up 12. They have the same record. They just have scored more goals. DC has given up just as many. Orlando has given up more. Chicago has given up just as many. So your defense isn't the worst. Your offense isn't the worst, but you feel compelled to fire your coach. That fits for Montreal. Laurent Courtois is a great head coach. Worked with Wilfred Nancy in the system at Crew. Wouldn't surprise me if legitimately if he ended up back at Crew in some capacity with Wilfred Nancy. Well, once again, they also, you add LAG, you add Sporting Kansas City, you add RSL. So there are at least half a dozen teams who've given up more goals than you have this year that have not played 5 consecutive matches on the road. Once again, chaos and reigning supreme in Montreal. And as always, thankful for all of you intrepid producers who are very, very fast on the button. And there you go. Yeah, Rich. Yeah. Montreal newspapers already don't report on Montreal. That's true. Abby, no, I didn't go over the passing numbers for Pedro. So let me see if I can grab the passing numbers for Pedro. So pass for Pedro. Hang on just a second. On the day, let me get to Pedro's numbers. All right. So getting into lineups. Hang on. It's just what happens when you go away from it, and then you want to go back to it. It doesn't go back to where you were initially. Okay, on the day, Pedro was a 6.3, but I'm fairly confident in thinking that the defense for Cincinnati up that side, and I want to say that was DeAndre Yedlin on the mark. Yeah, it was DeAndre Yedlin. It was DeAndre Yedlin keeping an eye on Pedro Amador for the entire match. So the full 90, 3 clearances, 69 touches, 41 of 50 passing, 82%, 2 for 6 on long balls. And then getting into defensive statistics. Did he have any defensive statistics? Nope. So 82%. And that seemed, Abby, that seemed like it was a fairly common number that United was passing in the low to mid 80s on the day. So Amador was right there in the middle of it all, 41 of 50, 82% on 69 touches. Nice. So that was that's kind of what you were staring at there. Now, Rich, on the FIFA World Cup, once again, Bart's going to be joining us here in a couple of minutes. And we'll go over the men's national team. And like I said, we got plenty of sound. We've got goals. We've got all the things. So New Zealand is in. Okay, so New Zealand has qualified. So we now add New Zealand to Japan. So we now know 2 of the 728 teams that are going to be playing in the World Cup in 2026. So Mazel Tov to the All Whites and to the Japan national team. So there you go. Comme dit dans sac in Québécois. And Rich, once again on Joey Saputo, is going to cash in on 1 or more Messi Miami visits and look to cash out on a sale. You know, I don't know. I always thought that Joey Saputo has just kind of viewed CF Montreal as a line on a balance sheet and is focused more with everything going on with his Italian properties. So that's, CF Montreal kind of what it is when you're looking at everything that is all there. But yeah, I mean, legitimately. Legitimately. Like I said, if I was Columbus, I'd bring him back home. Have him be there with Wilfred Nancy and just raise all kinds of hell. But once again, Joey Saputo being Joey Saputo, 5 matches in, all on the road. Your team's gassed. You lose 3-0. You fire your coach. Smart. Hashtag sarcasm font. All right, 10 o'clock, hour number 2. And we're going to be spending a lot of time on this. And once again, if there's any thoughts that you guys have when it comes to Atlanta United, FC Cincinnati, we'll go over that we'll go over that after we're done talking men's national team and all that kind of stuff. But because it is hour 2, and I know that somebody was, I'm fairly certain, fairly busy and or occupied in trying to watch the CONCACAF Nations League. We're going to talk about it because there's a lot to talk about. So bringing in Bart Keeler, once again, SoccerForUSPod. Bart, how's the voice first and foremost after yesterday?
Well, there wasn't anything to cheer for, John, so it's fine.
Okay, just I didn't know if there was anything worth if it was yelling or anything. So where were you? Were you watching at home or were you with group?
No, I was watching at Fido with the rest of the American Outlaws crew. We were greatly disappointed, expecting slightly more than we got, and having to watch the team continue to struggle to create goal-scoring opportunities as well as defend when it matters most. And that's kind of been the way I would summarize this entire Nations League window.
When you went, obviously, a lot of folks went into the match yesterday thinking, okay, this is going to be that battle that Jesse Marsch had been playing up that it was going to be. If published reports had Jesse Marsch playing the 3 fights in 9 seconds between the Team US and Team Canada in the Four Nations Cup that was attached to the National Hockey League, doing that as a motivational tactic. And then Jesse, being, how do we phrase? Emotional over particular moments and then getting carted and booted. So let me go reffing down here inside of the discussion with the men's national team. The behavior of Jesse Marsch taking your Outlaws cap away and putting your ref jersey back on. Walk me through that and what you thought about that particular move where Jesse got carded, told to head home.
Well, this is first off, let's just say that it clearly was not a penalty. I think every replay showed that. So for him to act a fool so hard and be so wrong was really just kind of childish, to be honest. And that's why we give coaches red cards now. Those of you may remember, we used to not physically give a card to a coach. Like we wouldn't show a card. We would say, hey, this is a warning, or hey, you're dismissed. I do think that the visual of receiving a yellow card or red card does send a message. And this was a great opportunity to show that. And the referee, who I thought had a fine enough day, she was completely right to give him a red card in this moment. He acted inappropriately for a good 5-10 minutes there because he got mad about another call before that and was wrong on both of them. And that's kind of the funny part here and there are theories. I'll slip back into a little bit of the US fan hat, but there are theories that Jesse Marsch does this stuff to rile up his team and showboat on the sideline, because no coach has ever done that before.
No.
And I do feel like there's a level of truth to that. But again, this is why, as a referee, we just can't allow that. And I had to deal with this with the coach yesterday, where he thought that screaming about something, a throw-in, mind you, would somehow either change the call or make some difference in the game, and he was given a card as well. That's, again, I think one of the benefits to this change in the laws of the game is you can physically show them a warning, yellow card, or an ejection, red card, and there's no confusion about what you've done. And he deserved it. That was inappropriate behavior to the highest order. And really kind of sad, to be honest. I mean, that was he didn't need to do that,
Where, and this we'll get into highlights and some sound that I have from
highlights.
Highlights, sorry. The one goal, we do have the one goal, and then that'll get into the player discussion. We do have the interview that Nico Contour did with Christian Pulisic. We have that. And we also have some analysis on the flip side from Matthew Cianidi from TSN and our buddy Christian Jack from One Soccer, as they got to discuss it at SoFi after the fact as well. So we've got that we can reference in as a part of all of this. Where philosophically is the U.S. right now in your mind? Because we're through with Nations League.
Yeah.
And legitimately, if memory serves, I mean, you have friendlies and camps and such, and you have, your camps of various desserts between now and Gold Cup. And then after Gold Cup, once again, I believe it's just camps of various dessert types. And then it's the World Cup. So you only have the one competition of competitions left before the World comes in a year's time.
Yep. So let's talk about that, John. That's a great way to look at the schedule. Is our next time we'll see the U.S. men's national team is a pair of friendlies against Turkey and Switzerland before the Gold Cup.
Mm-hmm.
That's in June. Then we see them in the Gold Cup. Then we'll have friendlies in September, October, November, and then friendlies next year in presumably January, February, wherever they do Camp Cupcake, and then March.
Right.
So you're correct. When you look at it all told, that's maybe a total of 12 friendlies before the World Cup, and then however many games you get in the Gold Cup. Hopefully you're playing 6. We'll see. It is problematic that this window was so dismal because it wasn't so much that we lost the Nations League. I mean, I think winning 3 in a row, winning a 4th would have been an impressive feat that, quite honestly, taking off the U.S. fan hat for a second would have been probably not a great testament to the quality of this tournament, which we can get into on another day. But the way that you looked so, I'm not even sure of the word, just incapable of doing a lot of the things that you say you want to do. And then furthermore, especially in that Panama game, showing a supreme lack of fight. You got a little bit better at that in the Canada match, but even still, it just seemed like everything was just at 0.75 speed going on, both on it with their feet and in their heads. And where do you go from there? I don't know, because it's not like this is a completely new system. It's really not. I mean, it's maybe similar to what you could say about going from Pineda to Dyla. It's not that different. There are going to be some things. And I think, maybe to continue that comparison, Ronnie Dyla has talked ad nauseum, it feels like at this point, about trying to encourage players to be risky as opposed to being risk averse, which does seem to be the philosophical change. I guess getting players to try hard as a philosophical change takes longer. I'm not quite sure, especially when in November against Jamaica, we saw a very good performance from the U.S., both down in Jamaica and at home. To come out to defend your title with very little fight, desire is disheartening. And I don't know what the next step is, because I'm sure the next questions will be, well, who do we blame? Coaching, players, all the above. Everyone's culpable here. But how do you fix it is going to be something they have to look inside to do.
All right, so a goal by Tony Oluwaseyi in the 27th minute made it 1-0. Then you had this moment in the 35th with one of the bright spots, I think, frankly, that was known by a lot of folks. Yeah. And finally, it's like the rest of the world, I think, got the chance to see one particular individual who I don't want to cross under any circumstance at all. Here was the equalizer courtesy of our friends at Paramount Plus and CONCACAF. Made it 1-1 in the match yesterday.
Diego Luna, back for Achibong, and there's your response. Diego Luna, the creator, might have been needed on Thursday, but sets up the equalizer. 1-0 in the third place match.
Boy, what a sequence this is for the U.S. men's national team. It starts with Diego Luna down below us on the right side, squeezing a ball into Weston McKennie, who finds a diagonal ball, ends up here with Timothy Weah. Look at the runs in front of Weah here. Good pass into Diego Luna, how about the patience from Luna here? He may have had a shot, but decides a better look here is for Timothy Weah, who buries it. Dane St. Clair gets a piece of it here, but the play starts, and the decisive pass ends with Diego Luna for the bury by Timothy Weah to tie this one up in the best sequence for the U.S. so far, 35 minutes into this one.
Goal is by Patrick Ajimong, given credit, but to Tony Miola's point, Chris Whittingham and Tony Miola calling it on Paramount Plus. You had Diego Luna inside the 18. It looked like Luna had the opportunity to just smash a volley straight through or just smash with his left. He lays it off for Ajimong, and then Ajimong had the slam dunk. I think that those two are they can be focal points going forward, but I think that Diego Luna probably was one of the high points from yesterday's match, and probably, to Chris Whittingham's point, should have been used in both matches during Nations League.
I mean, I'll disagree with you a little bit on arguing the fact that, sure, he scored, and I will credit him for scoring. That's something that Josh Sargent has failed to do since 2019. But okay, Josh Sargent also hasn't played in Camp Cupcake, so yeah, let's just put it that way. I think Diego Luna is the only person who came out of this camp looking good, to be just blunt. No one else looked good. There were players who downright looked bad. Diego Luna is the only player who, in my estimation, looked like a man befitting the shirt he was wearing.
Just to give folks the idea, and once again, we always go through the numbers courtesy of our friends at Soccer America. There aren't a whole lot of high marks here. Matt Turner, and we can discuss the positions that really are going to be in the magnifying glass going forward, goalkeeper being one of them. Matt Turner ended up with a 4. Once again, this is courtesy of our friends at Soccer America. Woitala's turn this time to give the numbers. Defenders, 2s and 3s. Scally and Arston, 3s. Max Arston had the one late chance offensively. That does not reflect the defense. CCV and Mark McKenzie were given 2s on the day.
That's very harsh on Mark McKenzie. I do not think Mark McKenzie was that bad. And in fact, I think Mark McKenzie, a lot of his time was made up for a very, very, very disappointing performance by Cameron Carter-Vickers, who is to blame for both goals. Both goals. The first goal, he takes a knee inside the box to try to block it, doesn't get up, and the guy who's right next to him is the one who ends up scoring. Now, sure, he was trying to block a shot, whatever. His inability to urgently react to the actual danger next to him was the problem. Also keeping them on side in some way, shape, or form at that time. The second goal, people are looking at Mark McKenzie picking the wrong player to follow. And I do agree he should have stayed with the player with the ball that he was defending. But that's because Cameron Carter-Vickers was doing God knows what behind him. He wasn't helping anything. He was hiding behind an attacker, actually. That's inexcusable. And I think CCV did himself a lot of disservice. And, look, good for him playing and winning titles in Scotland. But I'm sure Jarrett Smith will tell you that Scotland's not the league that you need to be comparing and using as some sort of statement for being able to play on an international level. That said, his teammate in Scotland, Alistair Johnston, somehow had a good game. So I don't know, but that just seemed like a CCV problem. And I don't think Mark McKenzie deserves that low of a rating, but both of them together were bad. Yeah,
Alistair Johnston, didn't matter if he was on the right-hand side in the first 45 or the left-hand side in the second 45. Yeah. He was causing problems for the win.
I don't know how that man has avoided the 17 yellow cards he deserved this entire tournament, but good for him for only getting 1. Yeah. That was, that's impressive, man.
Yes.
He probably should have got a yellow card or 2 in this game. He got a yellow card early in the Mexico game and then somehow committed 7 fouls after that and didn't get a yellow card. So good for him. I don't know how he did it. Maybe CONCACAF referees need to grow some intestinal fortitude and not be afraid to impact the match when the players are clearly impacting it themselves.
Yeah, and we'll get into reffing down here in a bit. Diego Luna, Timothy Weah, each with 6s. Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams, Christian Pulisic, each with 3s, according to Will.
Yeah, they were bad. Pulisic and McKennie were terrible this tournament. I mean, that's just what they were. That is the problem. is that your two best players, and I don't think there's any doubt that Weston McKennie and Christian Pulisic are your two best players on the U.S. national team, right? They're the ones playing at the best clubs of anyone. They're the ones playing the most at those clubs. They're performing well for those clubs. And they came out here and both laid eggs in both games. And you can't have that. You just can't. We need those two to be not even at their best, just at least at a 90%. And they were nowhere close to that this entire window. And that is where you have to look inside of the players and go, why weren't you up to the task?
After the match, Nico Contour caught up with Christian Pulisic, and here is that conversation. It's about 2 minutes long, so we're going to play all of it for you. Once again, Nico Contour, Christian Pulisic, courtesy of our friends at CONCACAF and Paramount Plus.
Christian, it's been a disappointing week. How's the group?
I mean, obviously disappointed, yeah. We'll go see, we'll go talk now, and then, yeah, we gotta come back from this, of course. We're not at our best at the moment.
And how do you get back to the best? The attitude within the group, tactically, is there something that you guys wanted to reinforce to get there?
Well, I mean, now all we can do is go be an example at our clubs every day, be the best that we can be. That's how national team is. And then when we come back, of course, some things need to change and we need to improve. So, we're going to look back and see what that is. I don't have all the answers at the moment.
Talk to me a little bit about the energy within the group right now. Gold Cup in particular, it's going to be a little bit strange because you might not have everybody in camp, and there are fewer and fewer windows before the World Cup comes around.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see when it comes around who can be there. Obviously, yeah, the feeling is it's not good right now. We need to turn it around, and we can hopefully build some momentum this summer because we really do need it, and with big tournaments ahead.
Bart just told me that he envisions you as like the perfect 10, his Christian Eriksen of what he had at Spurs. We've seen you play almost everywhere in the front line. How do you feel playing in that role?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I like playing in that role a lot. Like the last two games, obviously, I'm just not seeing as much of the ball as I would like, so it can be tough at times. But yeah, I feel comfortable in the role.
Today you captained the team. How did that feel? Talk to me about that responsibility.
I mean, this team is everything to me. I care so much for for this team, for this country. I hope people know that about me, and it's truly an honor. So anytime I get to do it and lead this country, it means a lot to me.
All right, Christian, good.
Nico Contour and Christian Pulisic after the match. And for those not looking on the video side, just listening to the audio, your brow was locked into the interview, and your left hand was spending a lot of time on your chin listening to that conversation.
Yeah, I did have to look up. He had 21 touches yesterday, none in the opponent's box. And you can blame, you can say, oh, I didn't see enough of the ball as I wanted. Well, buddy, go find it. Go find it. I'm sorry. I mean, that's just kind of where we're at, is like Diego Luna had 53 touches, so more than double than you had. Go find it.
Did I interpret correctly a moment in the second half where it looked like Mauricio Pochettino wanted to substitute Christian Pulisic, and Pulisic decided that he wanted to take a set piece instead and waved it off? Did I see that correctly?
I maybe. I mean, I don't know what that was, to be honest, John. And a lot of people were talking about that. I don't know. I don't know what that communication was. Because I don't know why. One, I don't know why he's so insistent on taking set pieces. The man can't hit a damn set piece to save his life.
He almost went to the explicit rating.
What set piece are you taking that's going to help us there, bud? You ain't done poop with any of them. Our set pieces were abysmal this entire tournament. Even last game, by the way, where you had Jack McGlynn, who does two things well, and one of them is hit a damn set piece. And you said, no, I'm taking him. Bro, leadership is sometimes knowing when you're not the best person for the job. Leadership doesn't mean you do everything. And here you are out here trying to take every frickin' set piece and bad at them. We got to find someone else who can take a set piece. Especially, again, you had Jack McGlynn on the field against Panama, a dude who we know who has done it in U.S. colors. We know can hit a set piece, be it a free kick, a corner kick, any of those. And you're like, no, I'm taking it. Bro, you need to sit down and humble yourself, because that ain't leadership.
Also, there were other elements in this that I do want to discuss. I do want to, like I said, we do have the Matthew Cianidi, Christian Jack conversation. It's a 2 minutes of a larger conversation that they had about what this means for Canada in winning third place in this tournament. But I also want to get into, and it's a point that was made by David, discussing Gio Reyna once again, in a match where you're trying to come up with something akin to an equalizer, getting close to 90 minutes, north of 90 minutes, and Gio Reyna starting to pull shenanigans again and turn things into a chippy discussion when you need to be focused on the task at hand. Once again, Gio Reyna doesn't seem to be, locked into what you need to be locked into at a key moment in a key match.
Our friend Doug Robertson has never minced his words about Gio Reyna. And while I do disagree with him, I understand more his point of view on this. And Gio's another dude who needs to grow up, to be quite honest. I mean, part of this, I think, for Gio Reyna is he thinks he is way better than he actually is. He's a supremely talented player, but he thinks talent is all that matters, when the reality is he doesn't have that much talent where it is the only thing that matters. Erling Haaland does these silly little things because, well, he scores a lot. That's the reality. Gio doesn't do that. He's barely on the field for club, and when he gets on the field for country, he's decent, but gotta do better. I agree. Gio needs to be focused on the game and not trying to start fights. Although I will say, wouldn't have minded a fight at the end of that game. That would have at least been entertaining.
When it comes to positions of concern going forward for the U.S. men's national team,
yes,
where are your positions of concern? I would say keeper, striker, center back. Am I wrong? Am I missing anything?
Considering no one played well this window, I would say all of them are a concern. I do think your goalkeeper situation is now at the point where it is a major concern. Matt Turner has reached that point as a goalkeeper where actually, we're on the decline because he isn't playing. That is a legitimate problem. He was able to mostly keep things okay, especially for the U.S. by not playing. But we saw this with Zach Steffen, right? Where eventually not playing week in and week out, seeing actual game minutes does hurt you. So he's there now. He's been there maybe for the last 6 months, but we really saw it this tournament. Even for an example, shanking passes. We just can't have that. Problem is, who's behind him? Good thing is Ethan Horvath's been playing a little bit more with Cardiff City. Trying to remember which side of that border that he was on.
The Welsh side, yeah.
Yeah, he is on the Welsh side. The better side, some would say. The MLS options aren't super inspiring as much as Zach Steffen has had a good start to the season. He was statistically the worst goalkeeper in MLS last year. And so while you hope that maybe that's because he was just shaking off rust and he'll be better this year, you got to prove to us for more than, what are we, 4 games into a season that you're actually good. Schulte is not a sexy pick for a lot of people because I think a lot of people just hate the fact that a white dude from MLS might be a starting keeper for the U.S. men's national team. That sounds really blunt to say, but I think that's an issue. Is they Patrick Schulte, what are you talking about? Like,
well, I was going to bring up folks like Schulte and Celentano to be considered going forward.
I think Celentano is a dude that probably should be looked at a little bit more. He's a much better shot stopper than Schulte. Same with Matt Freese. And if you're worried about playing the ball out of the back, well, you still have Matt Turner in goal. So he ain't doing that. There's always the people like, oh, we just need to start Diego Koken. No, homeboy is not ready. He's 19. Let him play soccer for a little bit. We are not in a good goalkeeping pool right now. And that's the reality. But there are options who maybe could be better than Turner because, as I've always said, goalkeeping is 10% shot stopping, 90% everything else. So what is Matt doing in that 90% of not saving goals? It's not great. And now even his shot stopping isn't a net positive. Slightly problematic. That needs to be evaluated. Center backs were bad. Even Chris Richards wasn't supremely good as we needed him to be. But I do think that with center backs, you have Richards and McKenzie, who I think I was disappointed we didn't see play together this window. I think McKenzie is just as good on the ball as Tim Ream, but he actually can run, which is a quality that Tim Ream doesn't really have. And I think that's my problem with Pochettino right now. Is like, bro, what are you doing? Are we what like I think my issue is using this as like experimentation to some extent. And
this was a point that Tony Meola brought up in the broadcast where he was, I believe he was under the impression that Pochettino is still trying to figure out, and it's just because of the calendar and that you happen to be in a Nations League tournament where you're still trying to figure out, okay, I've only been here for X amount of months or X amount of match windows or whatever, that he is still trying to figure out what that roster is looking like. So we saw it with Hayes on the women's side, and you're seeing it also with Pochettino on the men's side. Unfortunately for Pochettino, it was in a Nations League tournament, and you had 2 losses, and you finished last.
Which you can't do. But I'll take a couple of points there. How much is he making?
$11 gazillion.
He's making $6 million. So the dude can find the time to learn the player pool. That's one point. Point two, and look, I know he scored, so we'll give him that. And I know Diego Luna's been good, but I think most people would say Diego Luna should have been in this team a lot longer. But Max Arfston didn't cut it. Jack McGlynn didn't really add anything to the game he came into. His reliance on those January camp guys, and especially when you look at that preliminary roster that he built for Nations League, it's very clear he has not scouted players outside of his back door, at his backyard. And that does need to change. Homeboy needs to be surveying the player pool. And sure, he's not, but what? He got hired in September, so we're 7 months into his, okay, well, there's been plenty of European soccer played, and you can't make a trip over there or two to go watch some guys in person, especially those fringe players. I'm not accepting that as an excuse for someone who's getting paid so much money to do the job. Sorry, just not. Especially when, John, it's 2025. Finding video footage of these players is not hard. Get the man an ESPN Plus account and let him go watch some of the Dutch and Belgian leagues. Get him a Paramount Plus account so he can go watch some of the championship and other leagues they got on there. Like, I'm sorry, that's just a bad excuse. And using that, oh, well, he doesn't know his player pool. I can understand if he's not fully attuned to the depths of the player pool. But it's not like Greg Berhalter just called up the same 24 people. You know, Greg Berhalter had a pretty expansive player pool. And a lot of those guys played. So it's not like there's not tape to look at to evaluate them. I'm sorry, that's a piss poor excuse. Just to be.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm offering. I'm.
I know. That's been the excuse made, and it's like, well, okay, but he's 7 months in. He doesn't have guys that he. I mean, has he gone on enough trips to go see these? I mean, he should be travel. I mean, he doesn't live in Atlanta, so what's the point here? That's my problem, John, is yes, we can blame players a lot. One of the factors in all this is a dude making more money than any other U.S. men's national team coach has ever had before, with the pedigree of coaching that we were all excited to have. He has to start taking this job a little bit more seriously, to be quite honest. And not knowing the player pool 7 months into your tenure is not an excuse for me, because there's been soccer played this entire time. And I know you haven't been able to call them to camp. I'm understanding of that. But he dropped Brendan Aronson for some of these guys who were not impactful in the game. You know, he needs to do better. Just where we're at.
Let's see. Where was my quote? Hang on just a second. It was, where was it? And there was an article, and once again, it's a Paul Kennedy piece at Soccer America is where I found it. Pochettino says now it's time to be calm as a part of this. Let's see. He says, Pochettino said things could be worse. If we will be in this situation today in 1 year's time, for sure, I will tell you, Houston, we have a problem. No, SOS. He said that, and Tyler Adams said, I think we need to have every single person buy into exactly what we're doing and what we're trying to do. Spoke about winning duels, tackles, leaving your mark on the field, not being naive in certain moments, being a little bit more clever. And then when we come here, sometimes I think we forget a little bit what the games are going to give us. Mentioned what Christian Pulisic said after the match, playing that particular interview. Pochettino said, quote, I think everyone saw and felt that after Panama and Canada, there are things we need to improve a lot. I think we need to approach the games and the camps in a different way. But I say there's still a lot of time to the World Cup. Now it's time to be calm. So that's what Pochettino
said. So I don't agree that it's time to be calm, because I think this window showed that it's time to get serious. Right? So calm, I think, is not the word I would use, but I understand what he's trying to say, right? We don't need to freak out and try to throw everything out the window, but we do need to, as the kids say, lock in.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that is not calm, but focused. And I don't think those two are necessarily equitable. But I mean, look, when you're in crisis, you need a calm, cool head, but you need a calm, cool head who's focused on the end goal. And it seems like the focus for this team is not there.
Michael Head with a question. What do national team coaches do 90% of the time? They have the players, 10% of the year at most?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question, right? And that's where I'm kind of upset that he hasn't taken it upon himself to review game film from players who are, outside of what he's been able to see. I mean, look, he doesn't need to necessarily spend a whole lot of time scouting Christian Pulisic and Tim Weah and all these guys, right? Josh Sargent doesn't need a scouting trip per se, or even, a whole big highlight or film session. But, there are other players that need to be looked at, but also something that they need to do is build relationships with the guys. And I don't know what his level of communication is with the players. I mean, of all the things that Greg Berhalter did wrong on the field, he was a great communicator with the players off the field. And I think that's one of the reasons why the players liked him so much.
He's good at recruiting.
Yeah. He was not afraid to, he was very active in player communication and, as you said, recruitment. Mm-hmm. I think Berhalter showed that, he was willing to put in the work that Pochettino, I think, does need to do. But I think also Pochettino needs to relish the fact that he gets to watch so much soccer, right? Not every day is a strategy and film session, but he gets to just sit back and enjoy soccer for a little bit. And for someone who has been a part of this game for so long, getting paid to be able to go watch guys play in some of the great cities in Europe sounds like a great gig. I'll take it for less than $6 million. I'll tell you that much. Give me that Amex card from US Soccer, and I'll have some fun. I might, have some expenses that exceed my $6 million salary, but that's, for me and my superior to write off. That is the question right now, though, is where do we go from here? And I agree that a level of we don't need to be freaking out internally. Fans can, please be mad. Like, you should be upset that your team did not perform well in a major tournament. Absolutely, especially because we just fired the last dude who didn't do well in a major tournament. But I also have to look back and go, okay, well, the last time we had a major coaching shift when Greg Berhalter took over, 2019 wasn't a great year, right? We made a Gold Cup final, lost to Mexico. We lost to Mexico badly in a friendly in September. It was not fantastic. We were a little like, oof, what does this look like? And that, to me, is where we're kind of at right now. And Almada Float, no, I don't want to see Agamang up top. I'm sorry. The reason he was called in is because Ricardo Pepi and Flair and Balogun weren't healthy. Like, stop with this Agamang stuff. I'm sorry. Is he better than Sargent? Maybe. He puts the ball in the back of the net, which is something that Sargent seemed to can't do. But Ricardo Pepi does that a hell of a lot more for the U.S. national team. So let's not stop with that. That's not the narrative I want pushed, because I'm sorry, you're allowed to think that. That is not the answer.
Okay, well,
Ricardo Pepi, Flair Balogun out, Serginho Dest out, Jedi Robinson out. There were a lot of players and pieces missing. We have to also recognize that.
Yes, true. I think that I am of the looking forward to seeing Patrick Agyemang continue to grow and evolve camp, because I think that with a different skill set with the others, I think that as the power forward setup, I think that you can have someone like an Agyemang help you out with a different skill set than with the others like a Pepi and a Balogun, et cetera. I just think he brings something different in a look.
I'm not saying he doesn't, John.
Yeah.
He's fourth in the depth chart. So we need to just keep this in perspective. I'm sorry, he still is.
Well, and to your point, there were a lot of folks that were missing, but I think that Patrick Agyemang should be a part of the discussion, whatever the discussion is.
He can absolutely be part of the discussion. That discussion comes after Ricardo Pepi and Flair and Balogun.
Right. So, that's why I figured you were going with that.
I mean, that's the same, not to bring it back, but I know people always ask, what does Brooks Lennon have to do? Be Serginho Dest?
And that's the
I mean, Serginho Dest wasn't here. Marlon Fossey and Joe Scally are perfectly adequate and probably better than Brooks Lennon. So what does he got to do? Well, he's got to be better than about 3 or 4 other guys, and that's kind of the issue too, is if I will say from my own perspective, is there's a lot of the depth chart that is pretty concrete. I'm sorry, it just is.
All things being equal and all the windows agreeing.
Yeah, I mean, as much as he had a bad tournament, both of them, McKinney and Pulisic, who are you benching them for?
Yeah,
I mean, sincerely, again, yes, Christian Pulisic had a bad window. Weston McKinney had a bad window. That is a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you start next competitive match and go, I know they're going to get a win for us?
Right. Yeah. And so I think that part of the discussion needs to be tempered with the notion of the absences that are linked to this roster going forward. But all things being equal in a world competition with all of your heavyweights and all your big guns, then the roster does look different. And what you saw in Nations League carries itself to be your depth pieces and your changes of pace.
A lot of them, yeah.
With the exception of maybe an individual or two.
I mean, I will say, Jedi's absence was probably the most problematic in the window because of what he offers us going forward. Second would have been either Balogun or Pepi. I think if we have either of those guys, we're scoring more goals, right? I just think that's a reality. We still have to figure out how to create better chances for our strikers. That is a plague on this team that has been there for multiple years. But just having 1 or 2 of those guys back makes this team better. Then you're talking about, okay, well, you're going to add Serginho Dest back eventually because he is now back to health. That would have added a lot more going forward. That also from a game plan standpoint, you're not forcing Yunus Musa in. By the way, Poch, stop playing Yunus Musa as a wide player. Maybe as a right back, maybe. But that was another issue this tournament that he has also forced on us a lot is, he can play right wing. No, he cannot. Stop making him do this.
Stop trying to make fetch happen, Gretchen. Basically.
Correct. Yeah. But the problem was when you lost Jedi and Dest, well, now you're back up Scally. who is fine, but we don't have anything else to add to it, and that wasn't a real issue too. Is the dominoes behind that meant you were shuffling around, and yeah, I mean, when you look at this window, you do kind of have to have in the back of your mind, well, there were a lot of players out. I mean, truly, there were, I would say, 3 starters out: Balogun, Dest, Robinson, not there. That is a legitimate issue, right? But does that mean you shouldn't be beating Panama? That's the question. You lost to Canada, sure. Well, like, as much as I hate to lose to Canada, yesterday's loss with all the players that you had missing and they being pretty much at full strength, sure. You know, okay, you lose 2-1 in a third place match. There are things I can deal with, you know. It's the still losing to Panama despite Panama doing exactly the things that you knew Panama was going to do.
Yeah, I know
that still just doesn't sit well with me, you know.
Yeah, that drove you nuts. All right, so since you brought up Canada, here's part of the conversation that Matthew Cianigi had with our buddy Christian Jack about where Canada currently is when it comes to the post CONCACAF Nations League discussion, courtesy of our friends at TSN and One Soccer. This was after the match at SoFi yesterday.
What does it mean? Yeah, it's a significant day in their development. You know, they're not going to have many moments like this on the road to 2026, but they're going to have intense stadiums to be played in 2026, intense environments, and he can't stay out of the news. He can't stay out of the news. You know, I asked him a couple of weeks ago, are you comfortable being the face of this team? And he says, I would hope that I wouldn't be. But here we are again. He is once again. But what I like about this is, we're going to get to the plays in a second, but he's only able to execute that and do what he did today on the field by getting sent off because he knows the players will give him the reaction to do it. And he does it because of his love for the players and the compassion and the fact that he's a relationship coach and a true transformative leader. I really believe all of those words. They're not just sayings. They're absolutely things that I've seen with my own eyes. And you know, when you watch him today, this was a culmination of what's happened since Thursday. We've been speaking to him for the last couple of days. He said it in the press conference yesterday. He said it to us privately. His players were angry, and he did not want them to be angry, but he understood they've been going through this a lot. They felt disrespected a lot. And at that moment, he felt that was the need for him to step in front of everybody else and defend his team. And you're always going to get that from Jesse. That's the way he is. There's a passion, and that's the way we saw it.
Let's pay particular attention to Jonathan David here, because with all the form that he has had in the Champions League, to say nothing what's happened in Ligue 1, for him to come up and score a goal like that, I'm going to go ahead and say it. He's the most important player on this team right now. That's not diminishing Alphonso Davies' talent and his importance as a captain. But when you need a goal in a significant moment, there is Jonathan David.
Yeah, and the United States don't have a player like that, right? They'll hunt for a player like that.
No team in CONCACAF has a player like
you know,
that.
for me, he is the biggest attacking threat in CONCACAF. As a true number
Raul
10,
Jimenez
and
scored
obviously
4
can play
goals
as a
this
number 9
tournament.
as well. You can see the way that he brings that ball in and makes that turn into his left foot. You know, he has a lot of great qualities. Jesse Marsh has called Jonathan David the smartest player he's ever coached for a reason. I think his anticipation is right at the very top of those lists.
Part of the conversation Matthew Cianidi and Christian Jack had, understanding going in that it is a Canadian network broadcast.
Oh, I know. I'm not going to even try to be look. Jonathan David is a great striker. I'm not trying to diminish him, but to say that while Raul Jimenez scored 4 goals in 2 games is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But they are right in the fact that Jonathan David is something that the U.S. doesn't have, and that is a proven goal scorer game in and game out for the most part, right? We did not have that on the field this window. I mean, again, there's a lot of folks who love Josh Sargent, and it's hard to deny what he does at the club level. But again, homeboy has not scored for the U.S. since 2019, and he has had a lot of opportunities, even being injured on and off for the better part of, mostly injured for the better part of those 6 years. That said, no, throwing a temper tantrum because you were wrong about a penalty kick is inexcusable. That's childish behavior, and sorry, Jesse, that's not okay. I understand being passionate and sticking up for your players.
Mm-hmm.
That was just immature. I'm sorry, you were wrong. That's me putting the ref hat on because like you were wrong. We have video evidence of your wrongness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but like I said, knowing going in that Matthew and KJ are reporting for Canadian television, you're going to get those kinds of responses. But what I wanted to do is bring that conversation in where they're discussing Jesse Marsh and where they're discussing Jonathan David as the future for the tenured professorship that Jesse Marsh has.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm very happy for Canada achieving 3rd place in CONCACAF. Good for them.
One of the other things that I wanted to get into about the tournament itself before reffing down here, and it's going to be a quick reffing down here just because there really wasn't a whole lot to ref down here about. There was, and it was a Katie Weaver question. Why is fan excitement still so tepid a year out from a World Cup? SoFi shiny but felt dull and couldn't have helped the on-field product. What you were looking at was you were buying tickets for a doubleheader.
Yeah.
First and foremost. And so if you had, I think the announced attendance, I think was 52 in the round of 4.
They announced the sellout for the final. So I'll say that at least Mexico fans sold that out.
And that's the thing to look at here is that you're buying double header tickets, but you're probably only showing up for one of the two. Think of it like the current basketball tournament involving collegiate teams that's going on right now.
Which is happening in Atlanta this weekend, John. You're correct. Keep going. I love this analogy.
Where you are buying tickets to see your team. You may be a casual observer, but you have to buy the block for that day. You can't just sit there and buy a one and not have the tickets for the other. You have to buy for the whole block, and it's up to you whether you show up for both matches. It's up to you whether you show up at Phillips or whoever the current sponsor is, State Farm, and show up for both games. You can hate watch, which is what is done in the current college basketball tournament sometimes, where folks, if they buy the tickets for that session, and that's what you're doing, is you can hate watch for the entire session or just show up for your game, but you're buying for the session. And that's why SoFi seemed cavernous, and you saw a lot of tight shots, especially in the lower bowl, is because in the U.S. match, you bought for the session, and the Mexico fans that were there for El Tri really didn't care about U.S. and Panama.
So a couple of things. John is absolutely right. I want to continue that. Okay. If you are a Michigan State fan and you have to come to Atlanta, are you showing up for that Auburn-Michigan game?
Unless
maybe to hate on Michigan. Maybe.
Right.
Maybe. If you're an Ole Miss fan, are you showing up for that Auburn-Michigan game? Probably not.
Unless you're hate watching Auburn. Because
listen, you're an Ole Miss fan. You got to hate watch yourself at some point.
Just ask Marshall Henderson. Yeah.
But that's a great point. I mean, look, especially for John, tickets starting at $350. So that is the legitimate problem with this setup. And this is something that CONCACAF does. This is just how they operate because in their mind, this is how they sell the most tickets. I think we need to reevaluate that because it's very clear. Sure, they sold out the game. I would like to posit that had they had the USA Canada, the 3rd place match, say in Bank of California, right? I think you would have sold more than, I think SoFi's 70-some thousand.
Sure.
That's the sellout. We'll just go with 71,000 as your sellout, right?
Sure.
As we just said, there were maybe 5,000 USA and Canada fans combined, right? Yeah. Part of the issue is, John, because they package these games together, tickets started at $150. And that was like supporter sections tickets, right? I think regardless, you're talking about paying $100+ for that type of a game. So if I'm a US fan, I have to financially commit a lot of money. Obviously, yes, El Tri fans have no problem paying that money. Good for them. I'm not going to tell people how they can or how they should or shouldn't spend hundreds of dollars of their money. I'm just not. That doesn't include, John, because It's LA. Parking, you know,
Woo!
or that's just the issue, right?
Oh man.
I do think as when we look at 2027, which is also in LA, so we will have these problems again. I think CONCACAF should consider having Bank of California available for the semifinal and third place match, and the non-Mexico semifinal is played at Bank of California. And to me, you're looking at a 22,000 seat venue plus a 75,000 seat venue. Well, now we're looking at almost 100,000 tickets you could possibly sell. Now, I understand also from an operations standpoint,
Yes.
operating two venues, John, probably costs more money and definitely is more headache.
Mhm.
So I do understand that to some extent as well. That is the issue, is this package deal. Well, specifically, if I'm a U.S. fan, say I'm a U.S. fan who bought tickets to the final on Sunday.
You're a U.S. fan who bought tickets to the final last time.
I bought tickets to the final, or to the Sunday show, right? Like that's the whole thing. You get both of them, sure. But I bought those when they went on sale in December? Well, my team's not playing for a championship. But this Mexico fan might pay $300 for this. Well, of course I'm selling it. Sorry.
Secondary market.
And again, I'm not holding anyone. I'm not going to ever hold someone account. Like, I'm not going to tell someone what they should do for the money. I'm not going to hold people accountable for not wanting to pay a lot of money to go attend a soccer game. That is a CONCACAF issue. So while I do think that there is some sort of tepid fan excitement, right? The excitement is tepid. I don't think the in-stadium attendance for these two matches is a great barometer of what U.S. soccer fans want. And clearly, we just don't want to pay $150+ for two matches. You know?
No, that ain't happening.
So that's the thing, John, is I do think that as we look at 2027, open up Bank of California, then you can charge $70 a ticket to start, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're saying, oh, well, you buy two, so you're 75 even, right? That's half of 150. I am still way more able to pay for $75, right, than 150. That is a lot, especially if you're looking at, as people love to say, well, I want to bring the kids because apparently children need to be able to go everywhere, despite them not being wanted everywhere. Sorry, that's a personal thing. My bad. Point is, yeah, okay, a dad and a son, or a mom and daughter can now spend 150 total for both of them to go, as opposed to 300 for both of them to go. I get it. You know, this was a failure on CONCACAF's part, but they're not going to see it as a failure because I technically sought out the final. My point to them would be, well, what if you opened up another venue and now you have 20,000 more tickets to sell?
There you go. So this is where Bart is looking at things.
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, there was some reffing down here. Abby was requesting reffing down here.
I did not watch any of the game from that line. I listened to Mike and Jason the whole day, which wonderfully, I loved it, but I did not get to watch it.
Right. But along those lines, you had Rosendo Mendoza, who and for those that may not know the history, and I had to go, and as Bart was listening to the matchup in and of itself, a lot of folks may not have remembered that Mendoza was the man in the middle for the 2-2 draw with Messi and friends back in September at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And that is part of the history that is attached to Mendoza in the middle and how he calls matches. So it was all over the place is probably the way to phrase it. And not necessarily a surprise when it comes to consistency in refereeing and such. But the biggest thing and the biggest element in all of this is the consistency. And once again, since you can't figure out where the bar is, you're having to navigate where the bar is, and you don't know where it is. And so that's the element in all of this, where
that was a point Jason made on the
31 fouls called in the match period, 17 of them against Atlanta, 6 yellow cards, and the pacing by which Mendoza was giving out yellow cards and fouls in the first half, literally, it was almost a foul a minute at points. And that kind of inconsistency creates issues the further down a match road you go, because you're at 45 minutes and you hit that number. All right. So that's where you are at 45 minutes. Is that going to be the bar? And then you think that's the bar, and then it ends up not being the bar in the second half when an official overcorrects.
Right.
For whatever reason.
And he still called a lot of fouls in the second half.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think you gave out 3 yellow cards before 30 minutes. And I know every referee will sit here and say, well, it doesn't matter the time, a yellow card's a yellow card. Sure. Sure. There is a level of management to a game that needs to be applied. And a yellow card in the 9th minute needs to be a yellow card foul. Let's just put it that way. It needs to be an orange card foul almost. Just because to me, he doesn't manage games outside of using his whistle and his cards. And I think that's been the issue with him, is he doesn't care to settle a game down by using his communication skills.
Lucas Engel gets a yellow in the 9th minute for dissent, basically listed as poor sportsmanship.
I also wasn't sure. He had to have said a magic word.
Yeah, that's what
I had to have. Which, okay, that's a yellow card, but that's another one where you go, can you get in there real quick and be like, hey man, you don't need to chill.
Yeah. Yuya Kubo got one in the 28th for a foul. Will Riley gets one in the 28th for a foul. And that's where we were at the half. Literally, it was half of the yellows were called in the first half. The other half were called in the second half. He doesn't end up with another yellow until the 59th. Yedlin for dissent. Then it was Matt Edwards for a professional foul, if I remember correctly. And then the final one at 90+1, Latte Lot. I think that was a professional foul at the time, too, if I remember correctly, with Latte Lot, that 90+1. So.
Shout out to Alvis Powell for giving us an own goal. Love to see that from him. But I think part of the problem here, John, is when you give out early yellow cards, you're also setting a standard for yourself. And there's a difference. Again, we want players to decide the game. We're there to make sure that it's fair. Part of that means you have to communicate with them. And again, I just don't think he does it all that well.
Yeah, that was kind of what I wanted to have the discussion with you about. Had to do with communication and such when it came to men in the middle. Let me look at the foul numbers just to get the overview. So it was 31 total. First half numbers for fouls. It was, where's my fouls? I don't want match overview. I need
11 and 8, so that's 19.
19 of the 31 called in the first half alone.
Which is weird, John, because normally when you're refereeing a game, your first half is about feeling out the tone of the game and responding to that. So your second half tends to be more fouls called for a number of reasons. One, the temperature of the game always rises in the second half. We know this.
Yes.
Especially in a game that was 2-1 heading into the 90th or 80th minute, it's a contentious match. So for you to call fewer fouls in the second half isn't crazy, but that disparity is a lot, right? Because you're talking 19 to
12. Yeah.
19 fouls in the first half is a lot. And also the other problem is that breaks up the rhythm of the game that I don't think any team wants. Like both Cincinnati and Atlanta United are teams who would like to play soccer, right? We're not St. Louis, we actually like to play soccer. And that to me is going to I would be shocked if either Diala or Noonan were happy with the amount of fouls called for both sides. Right. And that's the thing is okay, yeah, we'll take it. But another issue is just game flow. And if game doesn't have flow, that's going to cause a problem. And that's, part of the reason why the first half was so choppy.
Absolutely. Back to CONCACAF really quickly. Rich going, unless it's U.S.-Mexico, is any CONCACAF tournament for U.S. fans? Mexico's an ATM that never runs out, ? Not wrong.
Not wrong. I do think if you listen to Hurt Gomez talk, he has said on occasion that the Mexico cash cow is kind of running dry a little bit. Part of that was because El Tri was not performing well, so people weren't going. But the allure of attending an El Tri, again, Sunday is different. You're playing for a championship. Of course, you're going to have a lot of fans there, and also in LA, where a lot of Mexican Americans live. Well, maybe not now, but in theory, can get over the border fairly quickly because we know that California and Mexico are close.
Yes.
Don't make it political. Sorry. But from a Gold Cup standpoint, you're not wrong. And I think ideally the US fan would be able to buy up a third of the tickets. That's just not what we're seeing. We haven't seen that in really any of the Nations League tournaments, especially when you look at 2021, the first one. Well, the final was USA Mexico. Then we had another USA Mexico final last time. You had a USA Mexico semifinal the time before that. So Mexico fans are going to pay to watch their team play. We know this, and that's great for them. But I do think that that's not the best business strategy. Again, if you could fill out a second stadium with more tickets, which, by the way, is what UEFA does, right? Especially if you look at the bid from Italy to host the UEFA Nations League finals this year. Their plan was use two stadiums in Torino. Use the Torino stadium, which is that Stadio Olimpico? I forget. But then also the Juventus Stadium. So for the semifinal and final. Well, those are two stadiums in the same location. Germany is doing a little different. They have Munich and then Stuttgart. I think Stuttgart. Regardless, I think exploring two stadiums for this tournament makes sense. For Gold Cup, they're going to play a doubleheaders every single time because the reality is Nicaragua is not selling tickets to a match, but the U.S. fans will. And that's just how it works. But yes, CONCACAF knows that their moneymaker is Mexico. And CONCACAF exists for one sole purpose, apparently, and that's to make money. So, yeah, that's what we're going to get.
A new announcement from U.S. Soccer. The women's national team is going to face Ireland at Dick's Sporting Goods Park on June 26th and at TQL on June 29th. That just came out a handful of minutes ago, so that's next on the grid. So when is the postmortem for the Soccer for USPOD?
We're recording tonight, hopefully.
Okay, and we will have that Soccer for USPOD as we get closer to episode CXV, I believe, if memory serves. We're getting really close to that.
Sure, John. Yes, that sounds like a Roman numeral.
I think we're CXIV. I think 114.
I think this will be that, yeah.
So you're at CXIV at episode 114. I knew there was a lot to talk about this morning involving the men's national team. And thank you for hanging out with us for an entire hour to discuss what's happening with the U.S. men's national team.
There was a lot. Yeah.
And definitely more to talk about with the Soccer for USPOD. So just catch your breath, get properly hydrated, and have a good record, and we'll post it.
Yeah, man. The refereeing this weekend dehydrated me. That's for sure. That's what happens. Hey, love to do it though. Had a lot of fun this weekend refereeing. So
absolutely true.
Be good, everyone. Remember that Atlanta United is back in town this week, so prepare your bodies for that.
Yes. NYC coming to town on Saturday. Be well, my friend. Thanks again, as always, and we'll listen for the POD when it pops up.
Bye, y'all.
There goes Bart. Man, we had an entire hour with Bart. There was a lot to talk about. So there was a lot to get into. And once again, thanks to all of you for all the questions and all the thoughts and all the everything when it comes to everything going on involving the national team. Like I said, with the event being what it was, I knew there was going to be a lot to talk about. I didn't anticipate having Bart for an hour to break it all down, but we did certainly do that. So let's see, who did I miss? Morning, Tom. No, I mean, Rich, there isn't. Unless unless there's an invitation, it's going to be Gold Cup. It's going to be camp. Gold Cup, because Rich is asking if there's any other pre-World Cup tournament you can get into besides Gold Cup. Unless you're invited to something that pops up or there's something created out of whole cloth, the answer is no. It's going to be camps. It's going to be Gold Cup. It's going to be camps. It's going to be World Cup. That's it. So, yeah, no more Confederations Cup. Let's see. So, morning, Abby. Abby was in and out. Let's see. Morning, David. And morning, El Mataflow Dos. Morning Mataflow. It's or Mataflow. It's good to have you in when you can. Let's see. The discussion about Aronson definitely was something up there. Mataflow, I was with you when it comes to Ajimong. I think it's a change of pace to have Ajimong up top. But once again, the absences in this camp add to what we found out in a couple of different places, especially offensively. It can carry you forward. Let's see. Morning Ropes. No, should not be lauded for a temper tantrum. Morning Derek. And and Ropes discussing She Believes in Nashville at Geodis. Big crowd, then they leave. Absolutely true. Yes, get there before traffic. Yes, and Tom, yes, tickets were $350. Let's see. So, morning Alex and morning David. And once again, don't know how Bam's trip was. I think Bam's trip is still going, David. I think because he's here to see LA and San Diego. I think he's here to see LAFC in San Diego. So I think it's going. I think he might be heading this way. Okay. What to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it, gossip, rumor, and innuendo before we get out of here. Once again, tomorrow, time zones permitting, we're going to catch up with Lloyd Hours, the technical director, and Matt Webb from communications of the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation, because they had a really cool announcement last week, and we want to continue that momentum. Tournament, August, Springdale, Arkansas. There's a Kickstarter to help fund it so that can be our friends from the Marshall Islands and 3 U.S. territories playing in Springdale on the 14th and the 16th, camp there all week. So we'll catch up with them tomorrow, and also it'll be catching up with Keeler Hodges at 10:30 to discuss everything USL and USL Championship. Now, today's gossip, since there were no actions on the weekend involving league play, Isak is open to a move to Barca. Sorry, Alex, but it would prefer to join Liverpool if they make a move for him this summer. That's from El Nacional. Kevin De Bruyne has held talks with San Diego over a free. That's from the 3-letter paper, but it was also disclosed in other places that the financials don't match up, salary figures specifically. Bayern's Harry Kane considering a return to England this summer. Liverpool, a preferred destination. Chelsea has to pay Manchester United £5 billion if they opt against turning Jadon Sancho's loan into a permanent. Spurs have begun exploring a deal for Tyler Dibbling, Southampton's 19-year-old midfielder. Liverpool hope to use 19-year-old Scotland winger Ben Doak as a make-weight in any deal for either Milos Kerkesh or Antoine Semenyo. That's from the 3-letter paper. Liverpool willing to sell Darwin Nunez this summer, and it ain't going to be cheap. Spurs set to open talks with Rodrigo Betancourt over an extension to his deal, which expires next summer, amid interest from AC Milan. Oh, and good to see you this morning, Soccer for Good OG. Also, England's U19 fullback Caleb Kaporha is set to leave Crystal Palace on a free at the end of the year after talks over a new deal broke down. Villa's 32-year-old center back Tyrone Mings is to join the Euro 2028 board of directors to help with organizing of the tournament. That's from our friends at the Telegraph. And that is your gossip, rumor, and innuendo for the morning. So you've got World Cup qualifying, Europe and South America. Once again, New Zealand has qualified with their win. New Zealand now joins Japan. Fox Soccer Plus, Lithuania and Finland at 1 o'clock. The groups have been set in the Euros, and now when it comes to qualifying, you win your group, you're in. So we're looking at Andorra and San Marino and seeing if they can get some work done. England and Latvia is at 3:45 on FS2. MLS Next Pro, NYCFC 2, and Carolina Cores at 7:30. ESPN Plus has a lot of AFCON qualifying, 3 at noon, 2 at 3, 2 at 5. And on the women's side, on VEEX, it is Liga MX Femenil at 9:05. Tijuana and Pachuca at 10 o'clock. It's Monterrey and Juarez. So before we get out of here, once again, you can help out in a bunch of different ways. You can go to Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. On your way out the door, use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase, 10% reinvested into youth games, youth initiative stuff that they have earmarked as cool. Also, Fanatis, fntz.co/soccerdownhere. You can get All the BNs, Nuestra Tele, TIC, For the Fans, Gold TV and our buddy Nino Torres, Liga 1 Max Pro, and all the points in between. You can continue your true degeneracy when it comes to watching action around the world in the sport of soccer. Jason got me hooked. I blame him. Grady Baby and Grady Baby Co. You can get our Soccer is Just Better in Atlanta collaboration with them, either red or black, gold lettering, Soccer is Just Better in Atlanta. And what you can do with that is help out middle school soccer programs attached to Atlanta Public Schools. Olive in New York, you can get our jersey, as you saw Michael Parkhurst on Friday be a part of that. He unwrapped his Olive in York jersey. Navy jersey, old floppy collar. You can either get the white letters and numerals, or you can get the light blue letters and numerals to go with your Navy jersey. Kaiser Permanente across the front. We couldn't do everything we do around here without them. Beyond Goals Mentoring, Soccer for Good on each of the sleeves. Olive in York, you can pick up your jersey. Marshall Island Soccer Project to help out the Federation. The Kickstarter project is up and running. Go to their Soccer Fed MI, I believe, in the 280 character app. You can start there and help them out, meet their marker to help fund the tournament that they're trying to have in August. Like I said, we'll have them on tomorrow, time zones permitting, and we can discuss it there. It's either going to be at 9 or 10. I've got to still have to figure out the logistics of it. Keeler Hodge is joining us at 10:30. If you want the scarf, you can get everything else from the Marshall Islands. You can order it from England, but the scarf you get shipped from me if you don't have a scarf yet. So you can get the jerseys, you can get the bucket hats, you can get all the things from them over in England, and they'll ship it to you. The scarves, I ship to you. So that's just how it is, considering that Maddie was the one who modeled that particular project. So it is Grady Baby Co., Olive in York. Go to soccerdownhere.net if you're looking for the SDH gear. You can get SDH gear. You can get old gear that Jason has retrified. I think it's the Attack, and it is the Ruckus, if I'm not mistaken, that he has drawn up. So you can get that at soccerdownhere.net. So soccerdownhere.net, Olive in York, Marshall Island Soccer Federation, Grady Baby Co. I think that's it. I think. But once again, and a Chant. By the way, you can go on to go to the Chant app and become a Fanatico. You can get a whole bunch of really cool discounts all around the SDH and the Atlanta United universe right here. You can become a Fanatico on the Chant app, and it is group.chant.fan/soccer down here. And I need to save this instead of having to type it every single time. So here, let me type it again. Group.chant.fan/soccer down here/join. I think I got it. Let me see if the period was added. The answer is no. Cool. Group.chant.fan/soccer down here/join. Group.chant.fan/soccer down here/join. More friends of SDH are joining our universe when it comes to the places that you can go and use your Fanatico-ness for discounts in and around here in the North Georgia. So group.chant.fan/soccer down here/join, and you can do that and become a Fanatico. $10 a year. Think about what you do for $10. $10 a year, you can become a Fanatico and really have fun and spreading the words and what we're trying to do here at SDH and helping things out there on a daily basis. Once again, today, 5:30, 7:30, it is Putnam County and Social Circle. I will be out there for that one, for that doubleheader out in Walton County. And it'll be our first time there. It'll be really good to see everybody out there as our soccer coverage continues on the high school side this week. We are at Kennesaw Mountain tomorrow for New Manchester, Kennesaw Mountain. Wednesday in session is at noon. Kai Uchimura from Druid Hills, Molly McCarty from Jefferson, part of the folks that are going to be joining us for that. Thursday in Perry, Warner Robins and Perry. Friday, Parkview and Brookwood. And there might be another broadcast on SDH2 on Friday. We'll keep you posted on that. We're chasing after another match on Friday when it comes to getting close to determining region championships and things like that. So Monday night on the network on soccerdownhere.mixler.com. Go to the Mixler app, download it, or go to soccerdownhere.mixler.com. Follow Soccer Down Here, and you get notifications when the live events are up. So at Social Circle today, at Kennesaw Mountain tomorrow, in session in-house on Wednesday, Thursday in Perry, Friday at Brookwood for Parkview and Brookwood, the Battle of Five Forks Trickham. We might have another matchup on SDH2. We'll keep you posted. So that is the day. Whew. Welcome back, everybody. And we'll go back over things tomorrow. Once again, tomorrow, Marshall Islands, Keeler Hodges, the rest of MLS, and that'll get the week continuing to roll here on the SDH network. So here on SDH AM, thanks for dropping by. We'll be back in a little less than 22 hours. And since it is the end of the show, we get to do this, and we'll keep an eye on what's going on in Montreal since they have sacked Laurent Courtois, which was not a smart move by the front office in Montreal. Like I said, I'm thinking Courtois goes back to Columbus, goes back to the juggernaut. He and Wilfred Nancy, once again, way to go, Joey Saputo. Nice by you. Back at it again, less than 22. Play it safe, everybody. Mucha plot, y'all. Since it's the end of the show, that means I get to do this. Back at it again tomorrow morning, 9:05 Eastern.